introduce myself. I'm David Roach. I'm British, but I've been living in Luxembourg for the last 21 years. This was originally, it was a career move, and before that I'd lived in Prague and in Tokyo, so I've travelled the world orienteering all the time. I've been orienteering for 56 years. My first Öringen was back in 1970, but I only joined the Foothold Commission 18 months ago. And I've taken on the responsibilities that David May used to have for looking after the World Masters and the World Ranking events. So my job this afternoon is to talk about IOF Eventor and why event advisors for World Ranking events should be concerned by this. Now, I am a bit of a newcomer, so Henrik Skoglund has very kindly agreed to help me. Henrik is the real expert, and if I can let him introduce himself now. We switch to Henrik.
Yeah, he switched on his microphone.
Great. Okay, Henrik, would you like to just introduce yourself and perhaps say a word or two about the history of how Eventor has come to be and its little Swedish friend, Eventor?
Yeah, Henrik, we can't hear you. No, we still can't hear you.
We seem to have lost Henrik. I hope you're there, Henrik.
Henrik is here. I think he has some issues with his microphone.
I will carry on, and I'm sure Henrik can step in when he's able to. I'll see how we go. So let me get
David.
my slides onto.
Yeah.
Let me
That's
get
what
my
I
slides
wanted to
onto the
ask.
screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. I shall find my slides. Okay, is that right? Is that working?
Yeah, that's working. Yes.
Good. Right. Thanks. So. I hear you say, well, your job is the event advisor. And you say, well, look, isn't IOF Eventor just some sort of administrative tool that the organisers need to work with? Well, I mean, that is true up to a point, but let's just take 2 steps back and remind ourselves of what the event advisor's role is at a world ranking event. Big picture, your job as an EA is to be the advisor to and helper of the organisers. So you're actually there to answer questions like, what's all this IOF Eventor stuff all about? I've not had to deal with this before. So you need to be able to say, well, this is what you need to think about. Also, critically, you share with the organisers the responsibility for the successful outcome of the World Ranking event. And not least, one of the successful outcomes is making sure that the M21 elites and the W21 elites actually get their ranking points. So those are the 2 big picture responsibilities that you have, but there are also some specifics. The rules actually say that you as the event advisor have to approve the start list at a world ranking event. And also, the rules require that the results are uploaded to the IOF's website, Eventor, on the day of the event. And this is critical to maintain the integrity of the world rankings. So your role there is not to actually do this, but your job is to make sure that it gets done. So those are some of the specifics. But there are other areas that you need to think about. Let's just, probably the best way to do this is to set a timeline and say, when should you be thinking about Eventor as an event advisor? Well, I think there are 6 areas, and we'll look at each of these as we go through. Applications for World Event Ranking Event status, when the application to be a World Ranking Event is originally made. when the IOF approves the world ranking event as having ranking status, when information is being published, critically things like embargo areas, bulletins, start lists. And then you need to be aware of what's going on during the entry process, knowing how the entry process is going to work. So that's starting with the decision as to how the event will take entries in. And then probably leaving the last two areas where the involvement is most intense to start list compilation and finally results uploading. So those are the six steps you need to think about. Let's look at each of these in turn. Firstly, when the application gets made. And straight away, we're into IOF Eventor. Now, how does an application get made? Well, it is the federation who wishes to host the World Ranking event that needs to apply. And the way the federation has to do it is to fill in an application form actually in IOF Eventor. There will be a new version of this coming out during 2025, ready for applications for World Ranking events in 2026. All the World Ranking events that are going to happen in 2025 should already have applied for World Ranking event status. So this new version of the form will work for events in 2026. The normal deadline for applying for a World Ranking event to have a status is 30th of September in the year before the event. But if the event's in January, February or March, you've got to do it a little bit sooner. And so it's got to be done 6 months before the event. So that's going to be in July, August or during September rather than at the end of September. So it always needs to be at least 6 months beforehand to apply for World Ranking event status. Now, some federations apply very early. And one of the things that doesn't have to actually be included on the form initially is your name as the IOF Event Advisor. But frankly, it's better if you are appointed as the event advisor as early as possible so that your name can go on this form. But more importantly, the sooner you're involved, the sooner we're assuring the quality of the event, and also making sure that things go forward in the right way. I also do remember that it's actually the federation that appoints the event advisor for a World Ranking event. You need to have the event advisor's IOF license, but it isn't the IOF that appoints you, it's the federation. And it's perfectly okay for you to be an IOF event advisor for an event which is taking place in your own country. There's no cross-border requirement for IOF event advisors at World Ranking events. So it doesn't have to be on the form, but if it's not on the form, the IOF has got to be told and the Eventor form updated at least 6 months before the event. And if that's not done, unfortunately, the event could lose its World Ranking event status. So what I've done is, for each of these steps, I've tried to put together a little checklist for event advisors. And, first, two key individuals have to be named on this form. One is to help communication. Somebody within the organisation team has to be advised, has to be informed to the IOF as that person is an English-speaking contact, so that people are coming from abroad, there's somebody they know they can talk to in English rather than just the local language of the event. So that's important, but more important for the smooth running of the event going forward is that there needs to be an IOF event contact person. And I'll come back to this, the event or results contact person, the key position. So as I say, we've got a little checklist for each of the tasks and these areas. And the first one is, have you been appointed on time? You don't want to find yourself in the situation where somebody comes along and said, oh gosh, we've got a World Ranking event scheduled in 3 months' time. We don't seem to have appointed an EA yet. Would you take the job? You might want to say, well, wait a minute, that's a bit late. So has it all been done too late? have the federation actually applied to the IOF to actually have this event treated as a world ranking event? Has the form gone in on IOF Eventor? So, are we actually in line? If the form has gone in, is it complete? Are all the facts there, and are they all correct? And most importantly, is the nominated IOF Event Advisor or results contact, is that person that's being nominated, is that the right person for the job? There need to be someone who's in the organising team and is closely related to the results processing, because they're going to need to do things on the day of the race. Sometimes we've seen situations where the person who's been nominated to do this is an administrative person in the national office who isn't actually even going to be there until the following Monday when work starts again. So it needs to be someone who's very close to the results processing. Is Henrik online now? I don't know if Henrik would like to comment at that point.
Yeah, I think I'm online now.
Yep. Henrik, that's oh hi. Good to see you.
Yeah, hi.
That's important, isn't it? That we get the someone involved who's really close to the actual results processing, who's going to be doing passing the event, the results data to you.
Yeah, because this is the actual reason why the competition is a world ranking event, to get the results uploaded so we can calculate the ranking.
Yep. So as I say, the key thing is, I know in the past you've said to me, wait a minute, that person really wasn't the right person. So just to stress that we've actually got the right person at this stage. That's the first thing on your event advisors checklist. So that's the first area. Let's go to the next area.
Hold on,
Oh, sorry.
Hold on, David. We have a question here that what about the appointment of the event advisor? Can it be of the same club than the organizers club? Are there any restrictions with that?
I think most national federations would have a problem with that. Most national federations would say, well, we'd like to actually have someone from a different part of the country, or certainly not from the same club. There's no IOF rule on that. There's no IOF position on that. I think it obviously it's important that the event advisor, the IOF event advisor, stands apart and is independent from the organisation as a whole. So being in the same club may be not a good idea, but generally speaking, I think the National Federation would have a position on that.
Okay.
Okay. Right. Next work area, when the IOF are going to approve the World Ranking event. Now, many ranking events, the form goes into the IOF office to look at it and say, yep, that's all fine, nothing there, and the approval is given very swiftly, and an email will come back from the IOF office to the Federation. But if anything unusual is likely to happen, the form that goes in to apply for the World Ranking Event status needs to have full information in it about any deviations that the event is thinking of making from either the rules of competition themselves or other IOF norms, such as the mapping standards. Also, it needs to say if there are any plans to vary from some of the instructions that are musts that are set out in the World Ranking Event Manual. So, for example, the World Ranking Event Manual says how the start list needs to be compiled. If something strange is planned there, that is going to be a deviation, not from the rules, but from the World Ranking Event Manual. Now, to allow this sort of thing to be dealt with, before it can go forward, you, as the event advisor, need to consent to this. You need to say to the organisers, do you really want to do this? Why are you going to do this if it's not the way the rules require things to be done? You need to consent to any planned deviations from the rules, other norms, or from what's spelt out as an instruction in the World Ranking Event Manual. And that does mean there's one other problem. The IOF can't approve such an event until the IOF Event Advisor has been appointed, because there needs to be an advisor to give that consent. So a bit Kafkaesque, but if deviations are being planned, then the event advisor needs to be involved immediately. If a deviation is being planned, it will then come to the Footo Commission from the IOF office. Jenny at the office will send an email to me saying, have you seen this? And then the Footo Commission, we will look at what's being asked for and say whether or not we think it's appropriate. We will do our best to be both quick and helpful in dealing with this sort of situation. So please ask if you think something is going to be a bit of a deviation. So let's see what the checklist looks like on this. Firstly, are the organisers not planning any deviations? And if the answer is no, no deviations are planned, that's fine, great, go back to sleep, nothing to do. If, on the other hand, deviations are being talked about, have you, as the event advisor, been fully briefed by the organisers on what's actually being contemplated? Have you confirmed that it's actually a deviation? Have you actually worked out what you're deviating from? And I've had several come through in the last couple of months where there's something written in the deviation box on the application form, and I'm looking and I think, well, why is this actually a deviation from the rules or the manual or whatever? So could the event advisor please say why it's a deviation? Also, you as the event advisor need to just check what's been written in the application going on Eventor into the IOF, the application for World Ranking Event status. If there is a deviation, you need to check and approve what is being written to make sure that what comes to the Footo Commission is sensible and correct. And lastly, and most importantly, have you actually consented to this? So it's, the weight of responsibility is in some areas. I mean, for example, if the event is saying we would like to use a 1 to 5,000 map for some area, have you consented to it? It's it's a rule deviation. You need to actually be involved at that stage. So this is, it's a big part of the job, but it does link to IOF Eventor because that is where this is all going to be written down, and what's in Eventor is what will then be considered by Footo Commission. Do we have any questions at that point, Jaska?
No, none.
No, good. Let's pass on to the next step in that case. Information being published. Now, what I think some people in some countries lose sight of is that IOF Eventor is the actual formal channel for providing information to the competitors. So telling them what the entry fees are, when they need to enter, right through to when they can see bulletins, see the start list. Strictly, the event's own website is just a backup. Now, awareness of this varies from country to country. If you're a Swede, you automatically go to Eventor to look to see what's there. On the other hand, if you're British, you might even not think about looking at Eventor. You would simply go to the event's website for everything. Awareness of Eventor is variable, but in strictness, Eventor is the formal channel for communicating with competitors. Organisers need to obviously then post everything into Eventor, because you can put in documents, you put in all sorts of information into Eventor. They need to post this, and they need to be doing it on a timely basis. It's a very good organiser's guide on Eventor, where there's the help and support tab on the website. Drop down from there, and one of the documents is the organizer's guide. I would say, as an extra tip, as you, the event advisor, say to the organizer, have you seen the event or the organizer's guide to Eventor? It helps to answer a lot of questions. So that's the event being published. Checklist for that. Firstly, do the organisers realise how important IOF Eventor is as the communication channel? Just emphasise that. Do the organisers actually know how to post things on Eventor? Have they actually read the guide? Very importantly, as an EA, you need to check, have the embargoed areas been posted on Eventor, and has this been done as soon as all the other information has been put up? It's no good sort of saying, well, it's going to be in this forest, and then only 3 weeks later posting and saying, by the way, there's an embargo, you can't go there. So make sure that the organisers know what they're doing and they get the embargo up on Eventor quickly. Ask the organisers, will the bulletins be posted in good time and not later than when they're put up on the event website? And lastly, in this area, your job as an event advisor is just to check Eventor regularly. Everything, is it still all right? Is it complete? Is everything you would expect to see there? So that's work area number 3. Henrik, any comments to be made there about event information getting posted into Eventor?
Yeah, I can add that it's possible to put other types of documents also if the organizer wants information about accommodation or things like that.
Yes, as I say, I mean, it is, some countries that you do see Eventor being seen as the main communication channel. Next work area is the entry.
There is one comment from Austria. They say that the inventory is indeed very often an afterthought in Austria. Just a comment.
Well, hopefully a little education will help. Please help to educate people. So the next area to think about is the entry process. Now here, very important to know, the organisers of World Ranking Event, they don't have to use Eventor as the event channel, as the entry channel, but they can do. Certainly if the event is being organised simply as a World Ranking event and the only classes that are being organised for are M and W21 Elite, then it's a very good case for using Eventor as the entry system. But often a World Ranking event will be a part of a much bigger event. Let's take, for example, the Portugal OMI every February. There are the elite classes, but there are going to be 2,000 other orienteers there as well. And they probably don't want to be making their entries through IOF Eventor, because to enter through Eventor, you need an IOF ID, and not every competitor across the world will have this. So we'll come back to IOF IDs, but if the event is purely a World Ranking event, then Eventor is probably the ideal event channel. If it's a part of a bigger event, then probably not. If you're not using Eventor, any other well-established event system is absolutely fine. But, and this is a big and important but, if Eventor is not being used, then the entry system that is being used has got to have an extra mandatory field in the entry form, so that anyone who's entering the elite classes can put in their IOF ID. Now, the IOF ID is very important because this is how data is matched to the world ranking list. So, this is the key information. The 5 figures are the way it works. Now, I would stress that the IOF ID is not the athlete's license that is needed for the top elites at World Cups and places like that. This is just everybody's little information sheet filed with the IOF in IOF Eventor. For example, I have an IOF ID because I entered the World Masters Orienteering Championships, and the entries for that are processed through IOF Eventor. So that's the IOF ID, and as I say, it is a critical part of this process because that's what drives the ranking list. So if we are using IOF Eventor, just to give you a little idea of its capacity, once people have entered through Eventor, it can put out files in whatever format the timing and result system is going to want to use. So there's a good interface back into the event systems from Eventor. It also has a facility for entry fee payment. So you've got competitors coming from abroad. This is designed so that they can make payments using a debit or a credit card. You do need to do a bit of setup here. The organisers will get the money directly. It won't go to the IOF. Because of that, the organisers need to have set up a Stripe account. This is an app that works for payment processing of credit cards. It can either Eventor can also deal with PayPal. And one of the good things about this is that you can't complete an entry through IOF Eventor unless you've actually made the payment via the credit card if you're offering this facility. So it's a good way of making sure that competitors pay their entry fees. What IOF Eventor can't do is it can't immediately deal with entry fees that are paid by bank transfer. If the event is offering payments by bank transfer as a way of paying the entry fee, then there need to be manual control so you can match the money to the entries. So that's a bit of background there. That's not going to concern you so directly, but when the organisers say, what's going on, how do I deal with this? That's the story. There's also another guide in the help and support section of IOF Eventor, which talks specifically about the credit card payment process.
There are a couple of comments on entry systems that Kel comments that you already covered that, David, but that the IOF ID needs to be present there, and also from Finland is Johan is commenting that payments are a problem, so you covered that also. But there is one question that I thought that if a competitor wanted to use Eventor to enter rather than an event entry site, it has to be accepted. Is it not a requirement?
I think that any event organizer should actually be quite careful not to have two entry channels, to say either we use Eventor for everyone or everyone needs to enter using the local entry system or the international entry system other than Eventor. I think yes, in theory you can have entries coming through both channels, but in practice, I would certainly, having organised an event where we did exactly that, I would not do it again. Right, so
okay,
checklist here, checklist. So the key thing here is if you're not using Eventor as the entry channel, please check that the entry form has got this box for the IOF ID to be added in, and please make sure that the system being used makes this mandatory so people can't enter and complete their entry unless the IOF ID has been included. That's the important one. On another much smaller one is if IOF Eventor is being used as the channel does the event, you've actually got to open the entries in Eventor. Have the organisers remembered to do this? It's no good saying, well, why haven't we had any entries? Well, that's because you haven't entered the entry system. And one point there, I think that if another channel is being used, IOF Eventor might show that entries haven't yet opened, even if entries are being taken through another channel. I'm not sure quite how that's working. I've certainly seen that in one case. Henrik, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, if organizer wants to use own entry system, it is good to place a link to that system with explaining text that entries are made in this system, and then the link.
Right. So in Eventor, so you've got to go to the website and use the local system. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Right. Let's get on to the more intense areas. Start list compilation. Right. If any world ranking event has interval starts, there are very few that do have a mass start, and then a start list is not quite so important. But if it's an interval start, the start list has to be based on world rankings at a date shortly before the competition. In principle, the way the start list...
sorry to interrupt. Let's go back for a while. Just got another question that does that mean that you need to have the IOF ID even if they are not interested in a world ranking itself, but everybody in elite classes needs an IOF ID?
Correct, they do, and this is very important because otherwise, we're going to have two different sets of results lists. Competitors who run in the world ranking event but don't have ranking IDs, this will not help the integrity of the world rankings list. No, if to get an IOF ID is a 5-minute job, and it really is rather important. And I'll come back to this when we deal with the results. It is essential that if you want to run a world ranking event, you need a world ranking event an IOF ID. Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the idea is that not to mess up other athletes' results going there without any IOF ID, so that will mess up the whole thing, right?
That's correct, yes, and I'll come back to that when we talk about the results. That is correct. So the first area where we need to know the rankings is the start list. And in principle, it needs to be in reversed order. So the best ranked competitors start last. And there's a lot of detail on that in section 4 in the World Ranking Events Manual. You can get the rankings from it's a slightly separate website, ranking.orienteering.org, but you can link to it directly from the Eventor website. Now, there's one thing that the Eventor cannot do. It cannot compile the start lists. Organizers need to do this. They've got data coming from two sources. Either you've got the what are the rankings? So you've got the world ranking list area, and you download from the world ranking list. So you can download from the world ranking list in various formats, certainly in Excel. Henrik, we had a question about whether the world ranking list download, does that actually show IOF IDs or not?
Yeah, the CSV file shows it, and the CSV file can be used in Excel also. So the Excel download, that's more a beauty file showing just the necessary name and points.
All right, so when I looked at the Excel file, I couldn't see it, and that explains why you need to look at the CSV file. Thank you, that's what I needed to know. So that's on the one side, you've got a world ranking list with IOF IDs, and on the other side, you've got the people who've entered your event, either coming from a non-IOF event or event entry system, but we've made sure they've got their IOF IDs. Automatically, they will have IOF IDs if the entries are being done through Eventor. So you've got those two sources. You have to compile the start list from those and then export that into the event's timing system. And you need to publish the start list in Eventor, either just by doing a file export from the organizer system or by posting the start list as a PDF document in IOF Eventor. So that is the process for getting the start list done. So as a checklist, and I'm conscious we're getting tight for time here, what do you need to do as an event advisor? Are you going to see the draft start lists from the organisers in good time? And then the question you have to ask is, are these start lists complying with Rule 12, the World Ranking Events Manual, and anything else they've said about the start lists given in the bulletins? So are the start lists right? And then you have to confirm to the organisers that you have approved the starting order, and that is a requirement of Rule Competition 12.2. So that's pretty serious stuff there. Next question is, will the start lists be published in good time? They have to be published on it in Eventor by the deadline, and that deadline is the end of the day before the competition. And lastly, if you're one of the bigger world ranking events where there's a qualification race, the start list for the finals clearly can't be generated until after the qualification race has happened. Have you got a system in place that you're going to be able to generate the start lists soon enough before the final? It's got to be done at least an hour before the final, according to the rules. So that's compiling the start list. And then, lastly, you then have the event, the date the event takes place. Henrik, is there anything I should comment on before we pass on to the actual results systems?
Yeah, a good thing with preparing the start list and upload it. It's then you have a check that you have the correct IOF ID on all athletes, and probably the results upload will be easier.
Sounds very sensible.
We have also a comment from Finland that the WRE competitions in Finland mainly uses national system as the entering system, and even foreigners can be managed with that. IOF Eventor is possible to use if you are from abroad with manual payments through bank.
Yeah, now you can make it work in many ways, but at the end of the day, you need to make sure you've got all the data from all the sources and you're compiling the list correctly. Right, let's have the event. Everything goes well, all the controls are in the right place, the map's okay, and the race takes place. And we've got to deal with the results, last part of the job. This is, as Henrik and I have both already intimated, this is mission critical. This is why it's a ranking event. The clue is in the name. The IOF rules, the rules of competition, specifically state the official results must be electronically submitted to the IOF on the day of the race. Now, the primary responsibility for doing that, I would emphasize, is not yours as the event advisor. The primary responsibility is that of the Eventor results contact person we spoke about earlier. That person needs to get this stuff uploaded to Eventor, either ideally in XML 3.0 format, the IOF standard format for operating, or if that's not possible, using it in Excel format, but using the template that is provided in the organizer's guide to IOF Eventor, which we've already spoken about. It's also, there's a web link to it from the World Ranking Events Manual. So that's the job. What's critical is that not only is it done promptly, it is done right. It's got to be error-free, because if there are errors in it, then that's going to muck up the world rankings, because world rankings just pull the data direct from IOF Eventor. So that's the critical background to this. And as we've already said, that data upload needs to include the IOF ID of every competitor. What is not acceptable to do is to just delete from the upload data the result of any competitor where the organisers have failed to get an IOF ID. So let's take, for example, some chap called Casper Fossum turns up and runs at your event. For some reason, he's not provided an IOF ID, but somehow he's got through the race and he's actually done quite well. And you're looking at, well, we don't have an ID for this guy. Well, we'll just take him out of the results. Now that is going to corrupt the ranking lists big time, because everybody else's ranking is dependent on the performance of other competitors in that race. So it is not acceptable to take information out of the upload data just because you don't have an ID, which means that the results that go into IOF Eventor should be pretty much the same, congruent with the results that are published, the published results of the event that go up on the internet. The only real exceptions are if, for example, you've had a man running the women's course at World Ranking Events, or probably almost more likely, a woman running the man's course at the World Ranking Event. So apart from that, the two should pretty much match. And Organizer's Guide, there's a lot of help and support how to do the results uploading. Read that part of the Organizer's Guide. Now, that's the principles of the matter. I'll next ask the question, what could possibly go wrong?
David,
yeah.
Keller asking a question related to the previous slide, kind of. Is it correct that if the event uses the same course for more than one course, example given women 20 and women 21 running the same sprint course, it should be a combined result list for those classes uploaded to IOF Eventor for calculating work ranking points?
That's correct. It should actually even go further than that. That if you've got the same course for, say, 20s and 21s, or even 18s, 20s and 21s, the start list should be compiled as a single race, as well as the results for Eventor. And then all you would do for the official published results of the event is you would then separate out the three classes or the two classes. So it should be mingled from the start and then separated out when the results are published, rather than just put together at the end when submitting the information to IOF. There's more information on that in the World Ranking Event Manual. Is that sufficient?
Yeah, but I guess so. That answers the question, and I agree with you that this should be the way to go.
Right. So the big question is, what could possibly go wrong? Henrik, do you want to talk about this slide? Because you're at the sharp end. You see it when it goes wrong. These are some of the things you've told me that are problems. Do you want to just talk about this slide?
Yeah, yes, delay, of course, if we are in a busy season and we doesn't get the results in time, then the ranking points could be wrong for other organizers when they are doing their start list. And the same if there is wrong IOF used, as you mentioned, the wrong person get the scores for that. Yeah, and the third point we also have mentioned, that there will be a strange result lists. If you are looking on that result list, you can see that 1, 2, 4, 6, 10, and just gaps, and yeah, people that are looking to the result list doesn't understand what has happened. So then we have first and last name switched. That is actually no problem, because Eventor is only using the IOF ID. So that is just how the list is published. So if you are using the correct name but the wrong ID, then it's the ID that is used. And it's similar with the club. It's the ID for the club that is important. So if someone has changed club during the season, or perhaps some years ago, but has forgotten to change it in Eventor, Eventor is using the ID that is reported in the start list, and it could be different from what the person have in the profile. But that is no big problem actually.
But generally speaking, most organisers get it right, and there are just a few where things need to be sorted out. Or do you find you're doing 50 or 70% of world ranking events, you need to do something to tidy up the results? Do most people get it right?
I would say that 20% of the organizer has some kind of error.
That's pretty good.
I need to either send back to them that you need to fix it, or if it's a minor error, it's I can do the change because it's the same time as sending a mail to them. So then I fix it for them without saying anything actually.
Great. Oh, that's encouraging. That's good. And again, it's the important thing is if there is something that's not quite right, that you and the IOF Eventor results contact person can get together and sort it out. And that's the way it needs to work, which is good. So let's look at the checklist here. Last bit of the checklist. Again, just stress your job as the EA is supervising this, not doing it. Before the day of the race, have you just talked to the results contact person and made sure they're happy about what they're doing? If the event is going to be a complicated world ranking event, so you're doing something like a knockout sprint, or you've got more than one elite class, then the results contact person probably ought to be in touch with Henrik before the event to make sure that what's going to be expected actually happens. And then the next question is, has the results contact person been told to tell you that the upload's been done? Because you want to know that it's been done, and you just want to say to the guy, look, please tell me as soon as you've done it. So you know that either it's been done or you know that there might be a delay. You as the EA need to be aware if there are going to be any delays, because if there are delays, it's up to you as the EA to tell IOF office, to tell Henrik as soon as possible that something has gone wrong. How long is the likely delay? I mean, I've got one event at the moment where things didn't go quite right, and we're still trying to sort things out 3 weeks after the event. So just say if there is a problem, tell the IOF office, tell Henrik as soon as you can. And then the last thing is, once the results have gone up on Eventor, is what's in Eventor, does it actually genuinely look the same as the results that the organisers have published on the website or in the normal results system? So those are the checklists. And just to close off with, this is what Eventor looks like after the event has taken place. And the details of the event are still in the calendar, and on the right hand side of the page there is a little R in a blue blob, and that means results have been submitted and your job is done. So there we have it. Any more questions?
Yeah, we have a question related more or less like the process of EAs and SEAs itself. So it's not related to Eventor itself, but I think this question might be more to our last presentation today to David Rose's. Is there any governance system to make sure that the EA/SEA is advising the event according to the principles we just discussed with latest IOF policies?
And as you say, that's a much more general question, which perhaps we should pick up later on. And say, I think the job here is just raising awareness, and people know what needs to be done. Just in terms of raising awareness, what I will do is, based on this presentation, I've got a set of notes, and at the back of that we'll have the checklists slides from this presentation, and I'll put that on the IOF website under the organising a world ranking event in footer caption. So there'll be some notes as well as these slides that can be found. So I'll put those up in the next week or so. So that's further information. If we've not got any other questions, just to round off with contact details, the nitty-gritty stuff, talk to Henrik. If you've got a bigger picture question, please talk to me, and those are our contact details. So I think that's really about it from me, Jaska, unless you've got any other questions.
No, and I made a note to myself that we will bring up that general question in David Rosen's question and answer section in the last presentation. So thanks, David. But I have a general comment myself. This was a very good presentation, and if I was a EA for the WRE event, I would show this to the Eventor contact person and ask the question that, do you know all of this, and if not, then we discuss it further on.
Yep, no, that's good. That's good. Right, I'll take my screen out and pass you back to the hosts. And thank you for the kind words. Bye.